Okay, we're going to start market structures next. There are four different types: perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and pure monopoly. A market or an industry consists of all the firms making a similar or identical product. So you have the blue jean industry, you can have the corn industry, the automobile industry, and these are all broken down into these four different types based on the amount of competition in each one of those industries. This is a continuum of highly competitive industries all the way over to non-competitive industries or markets. The two on the left, perfect competition and monopolistic competition, are highly competitive markets. They have many, many firms, in some instances thousands of firms, who make products that go into this industry. On the right-hand side, oligopoly and monopoly are non-competitive, or very, very little competition in those industries. Two different terms we need to be familiar with before we start this: barriers to entry, and we can also add barriers to exit, because there are some times where the government will not allow businesses to go out, and we'll talk about that later. But barriers to entry are just things that make it very difficult to enter into a particular market. Startup costs, technology, amount of control held by existing firms can make it very difficult for another individual firm to enter into a particular industry. Non-price competition are just those things that allow a business to charge more for their product, whether it's physical characteristics, whether it's the location of their store, or the service that they offer. They are able to raise their price because they have something else that they can offer a customer. Perfect, sometimes called pure competition, has many firms that are in this particular industry, and when I say many, I mean sometimes thousands. If you look at the agricultural industry and the number of farmers that we have throughout the United States, there are thousands of farmers out there. And then the type of product that they sell is a homogeneous product. If we look at that hill of corn at the elevator, once everybody puts their corn on that pile, no farmer is going to be able to go out there and individually pick their own corn out, because it is homogeneous. It's identical. Conditions of entry: if you want to become a farmer, you buy a farm. If you want to get out of it, you get out of it. Now, yes, there are going to be, and it's going to be expensive in terms of the ground, but you don't have the government or anyone telling you, no, you can't enter that industry, or no, you can't leave that. Control over price: there is absolutely no control that an individual firm has over the price of their product. If a farmer, even your huge farmers, were to stop farming today, it would make zero impact on the market. And then if we decided to enter into that market, it's still going to have zero impact on the prices in that particular market. In terms of non-price competition, there is none in a perfectly competitive industry. And once again, commodities are examples. And a commodity is just a product. It doesn't matter who you purchase it from, it's exactly the same. It doesn't matter who you purchase the corn from, who you purchase milk from, wheat, gold, stocks in a stock market. It doesn't matter, it's all identical. And what we have here is on the left-hand side, a supply and demand curve for a whole entire market. So if we are looking at the market for corn, this would be what's called the aggregate supply and the aggregate demand. And aggregate just means for the whole entire industry. Make sure that you know that. So we're looking at the supply of everyone in the corn industry and the demand for everyone in the corn industry. And where those two lines cross is our equilibrium, and that is going to be the market price that when you go to sell your corn, they are going to offer you. So on the right-hand side, we are looking for the demand of corn for one firm in that industry. So when you pull up at the elevator, they will tell you this is the price, which is determined by supply and demand, that we will offer you for your corn. You can't ask for more, because they won't give it to you, and you won't ask for less because you want to make as much money as possible. So once again, we've talked about how these curves are perfectly elastic, because you have no control over the price and you have to take the price that's offered in that market. Monopolistically competitive industries. I have many students who get this confused with a monopoly. Monopolistic competition comes from these businesses have monopoly power over the name. Our example, fast food, shoes, clothing, and I'm going to use blue jeans to be more specific. There are many, many firms who offer blue jeans, probably hundreds of different brands of blue jeans that you can buy. When we talk about the type of product sold, that's what they do. They differentiate their product. And the monopoly power comes in the name brand. If you sell Levi's, you have monopoly power over Levi. If you sell Calvin Klein, you have monopoly power over Calvin Klein. Lucky Jeans, you have monopoly power. Hollister, Abercrombie. No one else can sell your brand. You have monopoly power over the brand, but you don't have monopoly power over the product. So you differentiate and you put seagulls on your shirts or your jeans, and you're able to ask for a higher price. And that's where the non-price competition comes in. But it's relatively easy to get into some of these monopolistically competitive industries, fast food. And it doesn't have to be a chain. If you start to look at the different restaurants throughout the United States, there are thousands of different restaurants that differentiate their product. And if you want to open your own ice cream store, if you want to open your own pizza place or your own hamburger shop, you can do that. It's relatively easy. We just had a new restaurant open up in Wabash. So it's relatively easy, and if they decide they want to close it down, they can't. The government won't step in and tell them that they can't. Control over price, they do have some discretion over the price. Once again, if you look at the blue jean industry, you can get blue jeans for $15, $20, or then you can get them upwards of hundreds and hundreds of dollars depending on what brand they are. Non-price competition, there is some. Obviously, they want to differentiate their product, and typically we see this advertised on television. They're trying to show you this is why you need to buy our product. But you have to be very, very careful, because in terms of the control over the price, you do have control over the price, but people realize there are tons of substitutes for your product. So if you start to get too high, they will just go and buy its substitute. And what we're looking at here, once again, is that aggregate supply and demand curve. And this is just a generic supply and demand curve. So looking at this particular demand curve, when we look at one firm in a monopolistically competitive industry, it's not going to look like this. If this is everyone in the blue jean industry, and we looked at the demand curve for Hollister jeans, it's going to be a lot more elastic than the overall demand curve for everything, because there are so many substitutes. And we've talked about the more substitutes there are, the more elastic the demand is. So this is blue jeans as a whole. If you want a pair of blue jeans, there are really, there are substitutes, but not as many as how many substitutes are there for Hollister jeans? There are hundreds of them. So the demand curve for one firm in a perfectly competitive industry is more elastic than the demand curve for the whole entire industry. And then on the next video, we will finish up oligopoly and monopoly.